Welcome to this explainer. Imagine, just for a second, the ultimate time capsule. I'm not talking about some dusty object buried underground, but a living, breathing society. We live in an era where humanity is constantly pushing boundaries, right? Yet there is a deeply mysterious place right here on Earth where time has effectively stood still. Today, we're unpacking the absolute 60,000-year mystery of North Sentinel Island.
Think about the sheer contrast here. On one hand, we've literally sent probes into deep space and submarines down into the dark abyss of the ocean floor. We map the stars, we map the seabed. But on the other hand, over on North Sentinel Island, a specific tribe of hunter-gatherers has lived in total, unbroken isolation for an estimated 60,000 years. For tens of millennia, they've survived without developing agriculture, without the wheel, and entirely without outside contact. And anyone who attempts to enter their world uninvited, well, they simply do not return.
Now, what's really interesting about this number, 36, is what it represents. You'd probably think a place this incredibly isolated is hidden away in the middle of a vast, unmapped ocean, right? Well, it isn't. North Sentinel Island, dense with lush trees and shrouded in mystery, is located a mere 36 kilometers away from the bustling capital of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. It is practically right next door to modern civilization, yet it remains a completely inaccessible world.
So how exactly is this level of isolation maintained today? Well, it all comes down to the number 9. The Indian government has established a strict 9-kilometer exclusion zone around the island. Under the 1956 Tribal Act, Indian naval ships maintain a 24/7 patrol around this entire perimeter. Their mission is twofold: protect the estimated 500 tribe members from the modern world, and, just as importantly, protect the public from making a fatal mistake by wandering onto their shores.
But, being isolated doesn't mean they were completely unknown to history. If we step way back in time, we find that the great Rajendra Chola of the Chola dynasty actually documented this region. They gave the island a name, Thinmai Thevu, which beautifully translates to the island of strong, brave people. While we don't have extensive records of their interactions back then, the connection is so profound that figures closely resembling these specific tribal people are actually believed to be carved right into the stone of the magnificent Thanjavur Big Temple.
To really grasp why they defend their borders so fiercely today, we need to look at their history of contact. It's a timeline defined by an 1867 shipwreck, British kidnappings in the 1800s, a rare peaceful contact in 1991, surviving a massive tsunami, and a final tragedy in 2012.
Let's start with the 1867 shipwreck and their desperate stand.
The first major recorded incident that really brought this island to the modern world's attention happened in 1867. Picture the scene. A merchant ship, caught in incredibly heavy rain, crashes right onto the shores. Suddenly, 106 stranded passengers are sitting there waiting for rescue. The tribe emerged from the forest, armed with bows and arrows, and launched a fierce attack. The passengers fought a desperate, terrifying battle on the beach until a British ship finally rescued them. This violently proved to the outside world that these people would not hesitate to defend their home. But the colonial era brought an even darker chapter. As the British took control of the region, they launched a deeply misguided experiment to try and force a connection, believing they could win the Sentinelese over with the so-called benefits of the outside world.
The British actually landed on the island and kidnapped 6 members of the tribe, bringing them back to Port Blair. The plan? Give them gifts, treat them well, and send them back as ambassadors. But it was a catastrophic failure. Because the Sentinelese had been isolated for 60,000 years, they had absolutely zero immunity to outside diseases. 2 of the kidnapped members died almost immediately just from that foreign exposure. Realizing their horrific mistake, the British hastily returned the surviving 4 back to the island and abandoned further attempts. This event undoubtedly left a deep generational scar on the entire tribe.
Let's move to 1991 and see how this builds to a truly rare moment of peace. After decades of hostility following Indian independence, the Indian Archaeological Department launched a mission in 1991 that became a total historical anomaly. The procedure was incredibly delicate and honestly highly suspenseful. The team, which included a remarkable female archaeologist named Madhubala, anchored their boat at a safe distance. Instead of forcing their way onto the beach, they gently floated coconuts into the water. Slowly, cautiously, the tribe began wading out to collect them. As the boat drifted closer to the shore, Madhubala did something unprecedented. She called out to them using fragments of an ancient language she had actually learned. The tribe, completely shocked to hear a familiar cadence coming from a stranger, actually paused and listened to her.
It is just awe-inspiring. Madhubala became the only person in recorded history to be peacefully welcomed into their world.
She witnessed their culture firsthand, and amazingly, was even allowed to hold their children before returning safely. Following this profoundly successful and delicate expedition, the Indian government realized just how fragile the tribe really was. To protect them from disease and cultural destruction, they made the permanent decision to ban all future contact.
Next up, the 2004 tsunami and surviving the unthinkable.
We jump forward to 2004, when the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami struck. Massive waves absolutely decimated coastlines across the region. North Sentinel Island was directly in the path of destruction. The outside world literally held its breath, deeply fearing that this ancient tribe of 500 had been entirely wiped out. But when Indian government helicopters surveyed the island, they discovered something incredible. The tribe was perfectly safe. Because they've lived in such profound, uninterrupted harmony with nature for 60,000 years, they were actually able to read the environmental warning signs. They anticipated the tsunami before it hit, retreated to higher ground, and survived a cataclysm that devastated modern cities.
Which brings us to the 2012 tragedy, a truly fatal miscalculation.
The ban on contact would, unfortunately, be broken again. In 2012, an American named John Allen bypassed the strict protective laws. He was driven by a desire for adventure and wanted to spread Christianity to the island. He paid local fishermen heavily to smuggle him close, and then he took a small kayak the rest of the way. The climax of this intrusion was shocking, and it was swift. According to the fishermen who were observing from a distance, within merely 2 minutes of John Allen stepping onto the beach, he was struck by a spear. He was killed, and the tribe buried him right there on the shoreline.
The political aftermath, as you might expect, was very tense. When the fishermen reported the death, the United States exerted pressure on India to intervene and recover the body. However, looking at the situation impartially, the Indian government firmly refused to take any action against the tribe. The legal stance was entirely clear. The 9-kilometer exclusion zone is an absolute protected boundary under Indian law. Because the intruder knowingly bypassed this ban, the government placed the blame solely on the illegal intrusion, refusing to prosecute a tribe that was simply defending its protected home.
So what does this all mean? Put yourself in their shoes for a second. For tens of thousands of years, the only things that have come from the outside world are strange ships, violent kidnappings, and deadly diseases. To them, we are literal aliens invading their home. So I want to leave you with this lingering question. Is the truest form of protection for the world's oldest isolated people simply leaving them completely alone? Let that sink in. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.